Are you ready to step back in time and discover the dark truth about hygiene during the Victorian era? Brace yourself, because what we're about to reveal may shock you. Imagine bleeding freely on your clothes during your period, and there's no such thing as tampons or pads. Menstruating women during the Victorian era had to resort to military-grade bandages to keep themselves clean. But what about the rest of their hygiene practices? In this video, we'll delve deep into the past and uncover the gross realities of how Victorians handled their personal hygiene. Are you curious to know more? Keep watching. Although the Victorian era is often depicted in literature, movies, and TV shows as a time of glamorous dresses, luxurious mansions, and passionate romances, the reality of hygiene during this period is often overlooked. The truth is that behind the facade of sophistication, there were some harsh realities that are not commonly discussed. For instance, little attention is given to how Victorians sourced their water, managed their personal hygiene, or even went to the toilet. The media tends to overlook the unpleasant reality of hygiene during the Victorian era. Despite their lavish clothing, the truth is that the Victorians had some unhygienic practices. Taking a bath every week, let alone every day, was not a common practice, and indoor plumbing was a luxury that only few could afford. As a result, it's no wonder that illness was rampant during this time. So, while we may admire the elegance of Victorian fashion, their hygiene practices leave much to be desired. The reign of Queen Victoria from June 20th, 1837 until her death on January 22, 1901 marked the Victorian era in the United Kingdom and the British Empire. This era followed the Georgian era and preceded the Edwardian era, with its end coinciding with the beginning of the Belle Epoque era in the continental Europe. The Victorian age was characterized by a departure from the rationalism of the Georgian century and a turn towards romanticism, mysticism in religion, social ideas, and the arts. An alternative solution was the use of a guard, essentially a folded napkin shaped like a cravat, which could be tied around the waist using a ribbon or a string to create a T-shaped bandage. Patients would frequently mention how often they had to change their T bandage, which could range from 12 to 20 times a day. Another possibility was to wear thicker petticoats to aid with absorption. However, on days with minimal rainfall, most women found it to be quite challenging. Personal hygiene was a major concern for the Victorians. In order to prevent sweat from staining their clothes, they changed their undergarments multiple times a day. Additionally, heavy menstruation was considered a serious issue that required purging narcotics and physical restraint. Women were not offered pain relief during their periods, as it was thought that the pain was a form of punishment. Instead, women often relied on herbal remedies to alleviate their discomfort. One such remedy involved burning a toad and carrying its ashes in a bag at the waist in hopes of relieving cramps. Victorian society often questioned women's mental stability, assuming they would lose their minds due to the constant physical discomfort they endured. Despite dental brushes and toothpaste being readily available to the middle and upper classes, many Victorians still preferred to make their own tooth cleaning mixture. Tooth cleaning ingredients such as soot, chalk, coral, powdered alum, merle from cuttlefish, and camphor were commonly used. Toothbrushes in the past had bristles that were too abrasive and wooden handles that were difficult to hold. The lack of access to a toothbrush could have been frustrating. Celery was believed to have cleansing properties that could be beneficial to one's teeth, while others used salt or a ragged twig to clean their teeth. During the Victorian era, dental care was not easily accessible, as dentists were rare and expensive. In the absence of a dentist, barbers and blacksmiths would often attempt to fill in, although they had little knowledge of dental health. In an effort to whiten their garments, Victorian women turned to an unconventional method, using their own urine. This mixture of urine and animal waste was commonly used by women to wash their clothes by hand, a laborious task that was not made easier until the introduction of washing machines in the early 1880s. However, these early washing machines were not the convenient and reliable appliances of today. Many were infamous for tearing or ruining clothes, so many women opted to continue washing clothes by hand. For those who did use the machines, the process required a significant amount of physical strength to operate. Laundresses, who were responsible for washing large quantities of clothing, often had to transport heavy loads of up to 150 items to and from the laundry. They were also responsible for filling boilers, washing and rinsing basins, and heating water, making laundry a difficult and time-consuming task during the Victorian era. During the time of the Victorian era, cleaning laundry consisted of a process that involved agitating the garments in hot water with a washing bath for approximately 15 minutes. The next step consisted of removing stains in a wash basin that was filled with warm water by using a paddle that was up to 3 feet long. To remove stains, various substances such as lice soap, brick dust, pipe clay, or chalk were utilized. However, alcohol was utilized for stains that contained ammonia. The laundresses, who were the most skilled and had their own secret recipes for removing stains. Women wore multiple layers of undergarments, such as chamois, slips, hoop skirts, shifts, and crinolines, and petticoats beneath their intricate gowns to protect the outer garment from bodily fluids, such as perspiration and blood. This made it easier for them to wash long skirts and tights. In the 1800s, tuberculosis was a significant public health problem that was experienced all over the world. In the past, it was thought that horses were the carriers of this disease. However, researchers later discovered that it was actually an infectious illness that affected the lungs as well as other organs. The Victorians had a morbid fascination with the disease, especially in its later stages, which led to death. During this time period, tuberculosis had a rapid rate of spread. However, its specific mode of transmission was not yet fully understood. But before the discovery of antibiotics, victims of the disease, which were referred to as consumption at the time, would gradually lose their appetite and become pale and emaciated before ultimately passing away from the condition. Concerningly, during the time of the Victorians, there was a fascination with the progression of illness and how it ultimately led to one's demise. It was a common belief at the time that wearing corsets, which were very fashionable at the time, made tuberculosis symptoms worse because they restricted lung mobility and blood circulation. There have also been documented cases of women wearing corsets that were tied so tightly that they made it difficult to breathe. In order to solve this problem, health corsets made of elastic fabric were developed. These corsets were designed to alleviate the strain that highly boned corsets put on the ribs. Given that women typically wore full skirts and puffed sleeves during this time period, the question naturally arises, how did they manage to go to the bathroom when they were wearing such restrictive clothing? During the Renaissance period, it was common for women to wear loose-fitting undergarments that had a split crotch, which enabled them to discreetly relieve themselves by leaning over a bowl. In spite of this, a great number of Victorian women were forced to trek to the outhouse or the privy because the indoor plumbing was not yet widespread. It wasn't until between the years 1857 and 1891 that toilet paper as we know it today became commercially available. In the 1870s, the first squares of toilet paper were chemically treated to combat unpleasant odors that could be found in bathrooms. How did people clean themselves prior to the invention of soap and water? Corn cobs or old newspapers are the answer, which might come to surprise you. People even resorted to using rivers and other bodies of waters in certain situations. It was not unheard of for women to simply sit down on the toilet with their skirts lifted up or pull their skirts to urinate while holding small chamber pots close to their crotches. This was a common practice in the past. In conclusion, the reality of hygiene practices during the Victorian era is unsettling. However, it serves to highlight how far we've come in terms of personal cleanliness and hygiene. Thank you for watching this video and learning more about the harsh realities of hygiene during the Victorian era. While we may admire the elegance and sophistication of this time, it's important to recognize the unhygienic practices that were prevalent, from menstrual management with military-grade bandages to washing clothes with urine. The Victorians had to rely on unconventional methods to maintain their personal hygiene. The lack of access to dental care and the difficulty of laundry tasks were just a few of the challenges they faced. Understanding the struggles of the past can help us appreciate the progress that has been made in personal hygiene and inspire us to continue improving in the future. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to our channel for more content like this, and don't forget to leave a comment below to share your thoughts and insights about ancient Chinese hygiene practices. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.